kind of section that we're going to look at today is how to create and use Instagram stories to generate engagement. Now, when we're kind of looking at this aspect of Instagram, it's really important to think about the Instagram algorithm. Now, from what studies suggest and from what we can establish at the moment through the Instagram algorithm, is that the content that you see on your social media platform is the content that you engage with the most. So in this way, the Instagram algorithm favours accounts that already have really high engagement rates and that they're already kind of, have a lot of followers. And so it pushes their post to the top of people's feeds. Now, as you can imagine, if you're kind of starting out on the platform or if you're new to the platform, this can be quite difficult to kind of beat and get past this algorithm to make sure that you're kind of generating the best engagement possible for yourself on the platform. So there are different ways that you can kind of overcome this and that you can basically work to beat the algorithm as such. So a way that you can do this is through Instagram stories. Now, Instagram stories, according to Sprout Social, there are 500 million daily users. So they're a great way to quickly engage with your audiences, and they're pushed to the foreground of your social media accounts. They come up right at the top of the screen when you access the account, so that you can basically, when you log onto your Instagram, they're the first thing you see. So they're a great way to quickly engage and to build up your engagement on the social media channel and ultimately beat the algorithm. So the creating Instagram stories. Now, before I kind of go into creating Instagram stories, it'd be great if you could just put on the chat box whether you are using them a lot at the moment, if you are using them, how often you're using them, and just so we can gauge kind of if people are familiar with them or if they're kind of utilising them as much as possible. And then maybe Phoebe at the end can kind of let me know and explain whether people are using them or not. And then, so to create an Instagram story, and some of you may know this already, but I thought it would be quite useful to just kind of go over this aspect of it. But to create an Instagram story, you basically go onto your Instagram app, and it's right at the top of the screen. And you can either access it on your feed, or you can access it when you log into your account, when you're on your accounts page. So at the top here, you can see that I'm on the HdK account page. And if you click on the small profile picture with the plus sign, that will take you to the Instagram story platform. And here you'll be able to create either on that platform there and then, create a video or take a picture for Instagram stories, or you'll be able to use your gallery and to be able to upload and add Instagram stories that you've created already. So you might already have video content or picture content that you've already got ready to go up on your Instagram feed. Now, Instagram stories last for 24 hours on your channel, and the videos can last up to 15 seconds, but you can have as many of these as you wish. So you can really make them as long or as short as you wish. Now, once you've kind of made your Instagram story, or you've uploaded your gallery, all you need to do is click share to, and then to your story, and that will then come up on all of your followers' stories, and it'll appear at the top of their Instagram account, so that they can quickly see that content as soon as they log into that app. Now, that's kind of just a quick, brief summary of how you can create Instagram stories really quickly, but there's also other things that you can use, or other features that you can use on Instagram stories that are going to really help kind of boost and encourage that engagement with your followers.
We've had a mixture of use from people. So some people have said they don't use them at all. Yeah. Some people have said that they have used them, but they need to use more. And so struggling for content maybe. So that's probably a great thing for you to talk about now.
Okay, great. So that's really interesting to kind of hear what people's kind of experiences are with Instagram stories at the moment. And I think because they're such kind of a simple tool, and they're really quick to kind of create, and they're just a really quickly accessible way that you can just instantly kind of boost your activity on Instagram. So they are definitely worth using. And here's some kind of tips for creating those eye-catching stories that your followers are going to want to watch and keep up with. So when you are creating Instagram stories, I think it's really important to remember your content. So you need to kind of think of your Instagram stories as an extension of your platform. So it's really important to kind of remain and keep that tone and that clear brand voice through your Instagram story content as well. So you might have you know, different pieces of content that you usually put, or a similar way of kind of using your Instagram feed. So you might speak in a certain way, and it's important that you kind of push that into your Instagram stories as well, so it feels like an extension of your Instagram feed. Now, content as well is really important to have really clear and snappy content. And I think more than often, Instagram stories are such an easy kind of platform to swiftly move through. And I think if you use Instagram as a user, you'll understand what I mean, is that it's so quickly to skip past another person's piece of content. So it's really important that the content that you're putting in your stories is really clear and really snappy. So the most effective brands kind of convey their message within the first 3 seconds. So you want it to be really quick, that people, as soon as they see that part of your story, that there's something interesting that catches their eye, that's going to make them want to stay and watch that 15-second video, or to go on to the next part of your story. So that's really important to keep in mind when you're creating content for this part of the platform, is that it's really clear and that it's also really still has your brand messaging and voice. Another thing to kind of really think about as well is clarity. Now, it's been suggested through studies that stories that are, you know, uniform and that match the aesthetics for an Instagram story platform are more popular with users. So it's really important that when you're viewing stories, that you see that they fit that Instagram platform and that aesthetic. So make sure that you're filming vertically, make sure that you're filming really clearly, or whatever you're taking a picture of, it fits that mold, because it's just more aesthetically pleasing, and it also fits with the social media platform. It's also really important that your content is planned and thought out. So try not to use Instagram stories on an ad hoc basis. If you are going to use them, make sure that the content that you are putting out there is really planned, thought through, and is really coherent, because that way it's going to have relevance and purpose for your audience. So it's not just kind of an invaluable piece of content that people aren't going to want to watch. It's something that people are going to actually gain something from. The next aspect of creating a top Instagram story is being creative. So there are different kind of features that are in Instagram stories that you can use and adopt to help make sure that they're the most engaging and they are reaching out to your target audience. Now, ways that you can do this is that you can use polls, questions and countdowns, and these are all different stickers that you can include that can help encourage engagement on the platform. So if you're maybe trying to get feedback on a new product that you're selling, you could use a poll and you could ask people to comment, you know, have you got any questions about the new product? Or you could say, have you enjoyed the new product? All of these different things. We also have been using Instagram stories quite a lot recently with clients such as Gary Clark Company. And Gary Clark Company are a Northern-based dance company. And since kind of their tour has been cancelled due to COVID, they moved on to kind of developing a digital program of live sessions. And we used Instagram quite a lot during these live sessions to go live on Instagram and do things like dance classes or workouts or all these different kind of things. Now, we used Instagram stories and we used things like countdowns as a way of building anticipation for those events. So that's a really great way to utilise this on the platform, is if you do have an event, using something like a countdown to kind of get people excited and also to inform people of when that event is going to be taking place. So there are all these kind of different elements that you can use and get creative with on the platform. Another thing that you can also use, which is also really similar to how you kind of use in post is things like locations and hashtags. So they're both as well really relevant on Instagram stories, and it's definitely worth using them too.
Freya, we've had a question. Can you boost Instagram stories?
So you can't boost an Instagram story, but when you do kind of create ads, say if you're using Facebook Ads Manager and you used and that will then also, you can use that for Instagram. You can create adverts that appear on Instagram stories. So you can still have ads that run on that. So when people are flicking through, you might get an advert come up, and that sometimes will happen. You might have noticed it when you're on the platform yourself, that you'll be going through stories and then there'll be an advert. So you can still use them and put budget behind them.
Yeah, so if you have an ad that you know you want to focus on Instagram stories as the main channel, you can make sure that the ad design and content is optimized for Instagram stories.
Yeah. So, is there any other questions before I move on?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, great. So the next kind of aspect that we're going to look at now, we've kind of looked at how Instagram stories can be really effective in just reaching out to your target audience and also boosting your engagement on the platform, making you beat the algorithm and also then push up your other content on people's feeds. The next thing that I want to kind of explore is the benefit of hosting Instagram Lives. Now, Instagram Lives are becoming a more and more valuable tool on Instagram, and particularly with the current climate that we're in now, when everyone's, live shows have been cancelled, or it might be more difficult to meet your customer or your clients face to face. Instagram stories are a great way of engaging with your audiences online or engaging with your clients online in quite a personal and interactive way. And through studies by the New York Magazine and livestream.com, they have found that 80% of audiences would rather watch a live stream than read a blog post. 82% of audiences would rather watch a live stream than see a social media post, and 67% of audiences who watched a live stream bought a ticket to a similar event the next time it happened. So it's really, really a valuable tool of really engaging audiences and developing that audience connection you have on your Instagram channel. And I think even outside of outside of the COVID kind of aspect of why lives have kind of taken off, live streams are definitely going to have that kind of longevity because they are such an interactive and interesting form of content that is available now on social media. And in turn as well, they can also boost your engagement. So they're very similar to stories in the fact that it helps to boost your engagement on the platform. And it's also worth noticing that Instagram particularly favours this type of content. So when you do go live on Instagram, they push a notification to all your followers to let you know that you've gone live. And also that live content will stay at the top of anyone's Instagram feeds along the stories, and it will always remain at the first story. So when you're live, it's going to be, really clear that you're live on someone's feed. And so it can really help build engagement in that way because Instagram really supports this sort of content. Now, before we kind of look into lives a bit more, I obviously understand that going live can sometimes feel quite overwhelming. Obviously, there's a lot of technical aspects for it, and also it can just kind of feel you've got this one opportunity to kind of get your message across really clearly and to really reach your audience there in that hour slot that you have on your Instagram Live. So now I'm going to look at just kind of a formulation of how you can really plan a live on Instagram, making sure that you feel really confident and comfortable when you're going live on the social media channel. So getting live content right. So here are kind of like the 4 kind of key elements I think are really important to remember when you're going live on Instagram. And one of them is plan. So creating live content, it's really important to have a really clear, coherent plan of what you're going to say and what your content is actually going to include. So when you're kind of planning, I think it's really important to have a really clear structure for what your content is going to include in that live session, and making sure that that content is relevant or that it provides some sort of value to your followers. Why would they want to watch the live, or what do they benefit from watching that live show? And then also I also think it's really important to kind of narrow down what times you're going to go live, and also who is going to be hosting those live sessions. So when we went live and we created this live program of different workshops and sessions for Gary Clark Company, who I mentioned before, we kind of built out a document which was passed around to anyone who was going to host a live session. And that basically just went through all the kind of like clear things that you need to have in place before going live on Instagram, and also what sort of tone and how you should be presenting that live. So if you do have different people who are going to be going live on the platform, it's really important that they understand your brand voice, your brand messaging, so that when they're live, they can keep that all, you know, coherent, and they can make sure that that's really strong and it's really professional. The next aspect, sorry, let me just zoom out. The next aspect is to practice. So ways that you can do this is to practice on your mobile. So you can either do that by, you know, setting up your phone and vertical filming, and make sure that you're sounding, your light or your content, you can film it, you can share it with your colleagues, and then you can get their feedback on it. And that way you can really ensure that your content is right for when you go live on your actual social media channel. Another thing that I would probably recommend doing is just maybe building a test account on the platform. And that way you can, you know, go live and not have it be seen by all your followers, but you can go live, you can practice. And it's really great because it can mean that you can practice actually using the platform and going live on the platform. So you can get to grips with how you go live, you can get to grips with how you respond to comments, and you can also understand how you maybe end a live session on the platform. So that's another kind of aspect. So you've kind of planned, and then you've had that practice, and then you've built on whatever your content is from the feedback that you may have received from that practice. And that will all basically help to ensure that all of your live sessions feel really planned and rehearsed. The next kind of section is to prepare. So this kind of links to just before you go live on social media. So to prepare, are you using a reliable source of internet? Is your lighting really clear? Can your audiences see you? Do you have a clear background? Especially if you're going to be kind of doing a live content that involves a lot of moving around, or it's quite a physical live. You want to make sure that everyone can see what you're doing. So that's really important that that's all set up correctly. You also want to make sure that you have good sound, and that maybe you might want to have some notes to the side of you, so that if you do kind of lose your way, or you're not sure exactly where to pick up from, you have a prompt that you can use there and then. And then the next step is to perform. So this is actually going live on the platform. And when you go live, the main kind of key element that you want to kind of keep in mind here is engagement. Ultimately, going live is an interactive experience for you and your followers to kind of interact and be able to have that real-time interaction, so that you can see their responses there and then as they're commenting on whatever your live is about. So when you are live, it's really important that you kind of optimize on that engagement. So respond to comments, welcome people into the session, do shout outs, all of those kind of aspects that are going to really make sure that your audience feel that they're involved in the live session, and that it's a really, you know, valuable experience for them too, and they don't feel like they're just being spoken at. And another kind of aspect then that I think I'm just going to end on for this kind of section of the webinar is IGTV. So live content on Instagram, you can now actually save, so that then you can repurpose this content or direct your followers back to this content in later sessions. So IGTV is basically an extension of your social media platform on Instagram, and it's really easy to use. You can basically download the IGTV app, and then you sign in using your Instagram account details, and that will basically mean that you now have an IGTV channel, and that will appear on your social media page. So you'll have your posts, then you'll have your IGTV, and then you'll have your tag posts. And once you've done a live session, you can then save it to your IGTV channel, and people can go back to it and look at it and reuse it. And if it's, you know, a really great piece of content, you can direct people towards it, so that, you know, anybody who's not able to join in that live moment can definitely catch up on that content that you've created, and it's not just kind of lost in Instagram. So that's kind of all the aspects about live content and Instagram stories. I'm now going to pass on to my colleague Phoebe, who's going to look at the types of content that you can share to optimize your engagement.
Before you do that, Phoebe, Freya, if you can let Holly back in.
Yes.
Equally, we've also had a question from Fiona, and she asks if we can suggest any quick wins for gaining followers. And she gives an example: when you have 10,000 plus followers, you can, sounds amazing, you can add additional features to your stories, such as swipe up. Are there any other quick wins for gaining followers?
So I think in terms of what I would advise with social media, obviously we all want loads of followers, but I think quick wins generally kind of end up falling off. If you gain loads of followers within a short period of time, those followers, they might not be the most engaged. I think, so I think gradual is best. That's just what I'm going to preface this with. However, I think the best ways to gain followers that are relevant to you are doing things like competitions on Instagram. So doing like a giveaway, if you do a product as part of your business or an experience, can you do a competition whereby people have to follow you and tag a friend in order to enter the competition? And in order to maximize entries, you might want to think about value. So what's a really good value prize that we can offer that will really make people want to enter? Another way to gain followers is doing competitions with influencers in your industry, whatever that industry is. So whether it's kind of, you know, whether you're a clothing brand, you might want to do a competition with an influencer in the fashion industry. If you are a dance company, you might want to do a competition with an influencer, you know, a dance student influencer or something like that. And then that way you attract their audience to you. Other ways that you can gain followers quicker than through organic kind of content steadily kind of progressing is ads. Sorry, I think we've got a bit of noise from somebody at the moment, so I wonder if you could mute yourself, that'd be really fab. I'm not sure who that, I think it's somebody called Louisa, maybe. Fab, thank you so much. Ads, I think the more kind of money you put into it, the more likely it is that your followers are going to increase. But all of these things are steps that you can take to increase your followers. So I think it should be treated as a holistic approach, and I don't think there are necessarily any quick wins.
Thank you.
Fab. So now we're going to move on to, obviously Freya's spoken about lives and stories. I'm going to have a look at the kinds of content that you can post on your Instagram feed to maximize engagement and results. So we all know that Instagram is a visually led platform, and consumers are used to seeing content of a really high quality. So unfortunately, if your content doesn't meet those expectations, people just won't engage with it. But there are certain things that you can bear in mind and kind of tips and tricks that we can share when posting on Instagram to improve your chances of getting people to interact with your content. So first, we're going to have a look at what you can do with your images. So when you're posting an image on Instagram, you want to make sure that it is clear, bright, and well shot. So when you're taking it, think about things like lighting, clarity, the framing and stuff. So it's finding a way to make it look as polished as possible. However, remember it's a social platform, so you want to make sure it doesn't look too staged, and it's kind of a case of finding a fine line between it. People disengage if your content looks too corporate or professional. So it's really kind of have a look at some of your competitors maybe and what content works for them, and try and see, look through your best performing posts and look at the visuals on that and say, okay, well that image was really bright, that was really colorful, maybe our followers like that, and just try and incorporate that into some more of your images. When you're editing your images, we really like to use Snapseed. And Holly or Freya, if you could share, fab, Freya's on it already. So there's the link to Snapseed. It's a really good free editing app. And you can do things like, I've given an example. This is a photo of a lunch that I had a couple of weeks ago. I always seem to include food in these webinars. But so this was a salad that I had for lunch a few weeks ago, and I wanted to just edit it. This took me about 15 seconds just to show that with Snapseed you can do something really quick and make it a slightly more engaging and bright image. So here I think I just cropped it. There was like a bit of like a smear on the side of the bowl, so I just got rid of that. And then you can do things like use a brush to pick out the saturation and brighten the colors on certain bits. So there's really quick and easy things that you can do in Snapseed that can take a standard image into a really bright and engaging one. If there are any image editing apps or platforms that you like to use, then do comment in the chat, because I'm sure that we could all use some tips as we create our content for Instagram. Next is video. So if we have a look at how we can increase engagement in the video that you share on Instagram, and it's absolutely worthwhile because we know that video generates more engagement than any other content type on Instagram, and that's according to a study by Social Media Today. So it's absolutely worth incorporating into your feed and your stories. Visually, the same rules apply. So make sure it's steadily filmed, make sure it's clear and bright, think about the framing, and make sure it's quick and easy for users to consume. If your video takes a little while to kick off, people will probably switch off. So make sure it's interesting and valuable from the very beginning. And we're going to have a look at the kinds of videos that you can share, because I know a lot of the struggles that we have as social media managers or content creators, whether it's, you know, your main job or just part of your job, coming up with the content ideas can be one of the biggest challenges. So let's have a look at some of the kinds of videos that you can share. And in order for this to be helpful to as many of you as possible, it'd be great if you could comment in the chat what industry you're in or what company you're with. And then for each of the video types that I'm going to talk through, we can give some ideas or examples. So I'll give you a moment to comment with that. So what industry you're in or what your business is. So we've got dance. I imagine we'll have a few dance, theatre, corporate events, theatre, mask theatre. Great. So we've got a lot of performing arts, which is great. So let's have a look at the different types of video content. We've got fashion. Okay, fab. I'll keep kind of adding if we have more comments that come through. So the main types of video content you can create. So we've got how-to videos. These are the most popular form of Instagram video content according to Hootsuite. So how-to videos are absolutely worth sharing. So for instance, if you're a fashion brand, that could be how to style a certain piece, and you might want to get an influencer to film that for you, and that's a really great way of, again, getting their followers over to you. How-to videos for a dance theatre. Maybe you get one of the dancers of a company that's performing at your theatre or venue to do a little kind of demonstration of one of the sections from their show. I'm just trying to think of other how-tos. I think the options are endless, to be honest. I think maybe as well there's industry how-tos, like, you know, if you're a theatre, you could have how to get into the theatre industry, have, you know, an actor, have somebody that's behind the scenes. There's lots of different content ideas is what we're trying to communicate. So there's lots of creative ways that you can do how-to videos. And again, like I said, they're the most popular form of Instagram video, so absolutely worth having a think about. Secondly, we have interviews, and these can be either self-shot or professionally shot. Again, just following those visual guidelines. And they really just help to add a personal touch. People, again, it's the social platforms, they love to see people and interact with people on Instagram. So if you can include an interview, then that's absolutely great. So for instance, if you are a fashion brand, you might want to do an interview, and it doesn't have to be, you know, a formal, you know, we're interviewing somebody. It could be, you know, what do you love about fashion, or what are you wearing at the moment? You know, it could be just somebody talking about the topic that you work in. and interviews, for instance, if it's at a theatre, you could have an interview with the theatre company that are with you at the moment, or the dance company, and so on and so forth. So again, it's a really great way to get creative and just add a personal touch. Finally, and these are just 3 main video types, obviously there's lots, but finally there's product videos. And your product can be anything from an experience, it can be a dance show, it can be a bikini, it can be a play. So it really depends what your product is, but what you could do is you show footage of that product being used, whether it's a section of the show, or it's somebody wearing this item, or it's a testimonial about it, so somebody who's really enjoyed your product. There's lots of different kind of product videos that you can share without being salesy, because again, people hate that, they'll switch off. So just avoid that. Get creative and you can avoid that quite easily. In terms of video content, I could talk about this forever, but obviously we don't have a huge amount of time today. We recently created a newsletter. We do a monthly newsletter that we send, and we cover a different digital marketing topic each month. So last month we did a whole load of tips on how to create video for social media, with lots of kind of guidance in terms of length and editing and that kind of stuff. You can check out that exact newsletter. Freya's just shared a link to that in the chat.
On that question, Tiffany has asked what the optimum length for video, presumably on Instagram, would be.
So on Instagram, in feed, the optimum length is under a minute, because Instagram won't let you post any content that's longer than that. If you have long form content that you want to share on your feed, Freya spoke about IGTV. So if you upload something to IGTV, you then have the option to share it to your feed. So there's ways of getting around that. But let's just say a minute for simplicity's sake.
While we've paused, and while I've interrupted you, and we've also got the question, I hope I've got your name, Bhavya has asked, is Instagram made to promote B2B products and services? Yeah, I would guess. I mean, I don't know if it was made. I don't think it was made for B2B products, but I think it does work very well for B2B products and services.
Yeah, absolutely. I think whatever your audience is, a huge proportion of people are using Instagram. So I think I think if it's not if you're not kind of marketing to consumers, I guess you just have to think a little bit more carefully about how you target your the people that you want to interact with your content. So if it's B2B, you might want to think about using B2B hashtags, and we'll talk about this kind of a little bit later on, and kind of B2B targeting. Again, we'll talk about this a bit later on. So I think we'll probably cover this in a bit more detail further on in the webinar. And
then just while Ellen has just put in a question that maybe we can pick up later or at an appropriate time, but just so we're thinking about it, industry specific one. Regarding showing a product, we often find that we need a trailer before we have even built the show yet, let alone rehearsed it. Rehearsal videos and interviews can feel a bit boring, she suggests. Any great ideas about alternatives to rehearsal videos and interviews for generating that interest about a show before you've got the sort of I guess the show footage, and that avoids bringing in a video editor? Yeah, very good question. And this is something that we work with quite a lot. I don't know that rehearsal videos or interviews are boring. I think we get some really good responses to that. So I think it's absolutely still worth incorporating those. I think perhaps, you want to start promoting a show before you've had chance to record the show footage, which can be a challenge. So I think maybe, especially now where audiences are so much more used to seeing stuff that's like self-filmed, because we have to find new ways of creating content. And I think, thankfully, one positive that's come of this is that people will be more accepting and welcoming of that kind of content beyond kind of the effects of COVID. So perhaps before you have show footage, you can kind of get in touch with the dancers, get them to film like a really fun little snippet,
whether that's them talking, enthusing about the show and how excited they are to bring it to your venue, or whether it's them performing a little piece. I think self-filmed content, there's so many guides out there in terms of how to get it right, and again, people are so much more used to seeing that kind of content now. So I think diversifying your content is always valuable. So even if it's incorporating that kind of content throughout the campaign, even after you have the trailer, I think that'd be a really great addition.
I also wonder whether there's stuff you can do with, directors and creators of shows are often, they've got source material that influences how the show is going to end. I wonder whether there's stuff you can do with stills that sort of threaded together in a kind of video with captions that sort of get across a snappy message, that sort of get to the essence of a show. I think there's... And of course, there are, as well as video editors, there are lots of online tools that are easy for anyone to edit something quite simple together. Maybe we can have a think. We can maybe suggest some of those tools by the end or in the follow-up to this.
Yeah, and like past performances and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's lots that you can share before you have the trailer. I'm going to jump back into this because I'm just conscious of time. The next in-feed content that we'll have a look at how to optimize is whether you should go branded or unbranded on your Instagram feed. And really it's a case of striking a balance. So as we know, it's a social platform and people go there to feel inspired. They go there to see what their friends are posting. They don't go there to be explicitly sold to, which is a challenge for all marketers, how to get around that. And what we need to be conscious of is that if people feel like they're being sold to, they're going to switch off. So we have to market our product or service much more creatively than just kind of saying, this is what we're doing, come and buy it, or, this is what's available, come and buy it. And that doesn't mean that you can't use kind of, key messaging or branded hashtags or logos. It's just about making sure that you give your brand a more human feel and encourage social interaction. And by doing that, you'll get engagement and not switch people off. Again, just a quick tip, you can also check your analytics to see what kind of content works best for your audience. So if you look in your Instagram and analytics, you can filter your content, your posts by most engaged. So you can have a look and see, okay, so this image performed really well. It wasn't branded. Maybe I'll do a bit more of that. This video worked really well. That was a how-to video. Let's do more of that, and that kind of thing. So you just learn specifically from your audience what works best from them. So that's another thing to have a look at. The next thing that we are going to have a look at in terms of optimizing your engagement is when to post to connect with your audience. And there are all kinds of insights that you can learn from Instagram, and these you can learn basically the best times to post to maximize engagement from your audience. And you can have a look at your analytics to figure this out. So we'll just talk you through how to do this very quickly. Some of you might know how to do this, but we'll just go over it just in case. So if you go into the Insights tab on Instagram, there is a section called Audience. And right at the bottom, you can have a look at your followers' most active times. And so you can see here what days are most active and then what times on those days are most active. And so this enables you to post at those peak activity times to maximize the chances of you getting really good engagement. For instance, so if you can only post 3 or 4 times a week, if you've only got 3 or 4 pieces of content to put out, then you want to make sure that you post, let's see, on a Thursday at 8 p.m. and then that way you'll maximize your engagement. Obviously, there's also the conversation of how often you should post. I think once per day is what's recommended in terms of consistency, but quality is the most important factor. So if you feel like you don't have the content to post every day, don't feel that you have to, because then you're going to post content that's not interesting and won't engage your audience, and therefore your engagement will actually decline as a result of that. So just get the content right, and post consistently to your frequency that you can put posts out, if that makes sense. And having a look at your analytics like this shouldn't be like a once off activity. So you shouldn't kind of have a look and say, okay, well, Thursdays are the best for our audience, so let's always post on Thursday. That might change in a month or in 2 months' time. So it's best to do this process on a monthly, quarterly basis. Whenever you can, just check in and make sure that it still works for your audience. Before we move on to the next section, just another tip on analytics. Instagram has an awful lot of information available. So having a look through your demographics on there, so the ages and the locations and the gender, can also help you to understand who your audience is so that you can tailor your content to them, which is fab. Moving on to the final section of the webinar, we're going to have a look at how you can reach your target audiences. So this is about making sure that the engagement and the interaction that you receive is from the people that you actually want to interact with your profile. So on top of understanding who your current audience is, it's really beneficial to bear in mind who your target audience is, obviously in everything that we do as marketers, but particularly on social media. And this is so that you can try and target them with the content that you share on the app. And there's a number of ways that you can do this. Firstly, you can use hashtags, and this is a free tool, which is fab. We don't want to overdo hashtags. It's best to use niche hashtags that are specific to either your industry or to different communities that you want to target. So for instance, if you work in dance, an industry specific hashtag would be dance, or let's see, kind of ballet or something like that. And a community specific hashtag would be something like dancer or dancer life or dance student, and that kind of thing, to kind of, if you think that this particular post would work really well with students, then use dance student based hashtags. And in order to generate hashtags and come up with hashtag ideas for your niche, there's a really good free platform called All Hashtag that you can check out. That's just online. And that will generate 30 hashtags around a certain subject. It's worth bearing in mind that not all of these hashtags are going to be relevant for you. So have a look through. It's basically just to give you ideas. So make sure that you use them selectively and switch them up so that with each post, you have hashtags that are specific to the content of that post, rather than just copying and pasting the same, however many hashtags into each post. On Instagram, the maximum number that you can use is 30 hashtags, but that can kind of, again, look a bit spammy, which will switch people off. So we recommend using anywhere between 5 and 15, and just reaching that sweet spot. Finally, we will have a look at how adding budget or doing some ads can really help you to reach your target audience. So on Instagram, you can promote your posts and build out your target audience so that this audience sees that post more and will hopefully interact with it. By adding a bit of budget to your content plan, even if it's just a small amount, you can show your posts to not just a bigger audience, but a really targeted one, which means that you will show your posts to the right people. Hopefully they will be interested in your content, not just the ad that they're being served, but all of the content that you share, and you're more likely to then convert them into a follower. So that's another way that you can gain followers through ads. If you could leave a comment in the chat saying whether you currently add budget to your posts, that would be great, just so that we can gauge what kind of activity you guys are carrying out at the moment. Then that would be great, and we can kind of expand on certain points if you have anything that you'd like us to go into in more detail. In terms of the targeting that's available on Instagram, you can target based on the pages that people like, the demographics that they are, their purchasing behavior, and actually quite a lot of things that if you are a consumer might kind of freak you out a little bit, but is great for us marketers. So having a look through those, you can build out a target audience. For instance, if you have a show coming up or a product coming up that you think is going to resonate with a particular community or part of society, then you can build a target audience that's really specific to them, and therefore you will most likely get really good engagement on that post and get your money's worth in that boost. Adding a little budget beats the Instagram algorithm, and again, we know that Instagram favors bigger accounts because how it works is the more likes that a post gets within a very short time frame, the more Instagram will push that in front of people. If you have a big account and you post, you're going to get those likes, so then it will naturally show it to more people. Whereas if you have a small account and you're just starting out, if you create a post, no matter how engaging it is, you only have a certain number of people to show it to, so you might not get the likes that it needs to push it further onto people's feeds. So adding a bit of budget really kind of helps you push through that and make sure that it's shown to as much people as possible, as many people as possible. And if you, I kind of touched on this, but if you do your targeting well, your engagement won't just increase on the post that you promote, it will also increase across all of your content, and you'll also gain followers. I am a big advocate of Facebook Ads Manager. We use it all the time at HdK, and you can use that to create ads on both Facebook and Instagram. And doing so is completely free. It costs the same, therefore, as promoting posts. It's just your ad spend, but you get a huge amount more control through Ads Manager. So, for instance, if you have a look at the image here on the slide, you can choose whether you want to target people based on brand awareness, whether you want to generate traffic or engagement or views, or get conversions. There's a huge amount of options that you have available to you, and it's free to use. So I would absolutely recommend using Ads Manager if you have the time to have a look through it. For people who want to learn a bit more about advertising on Instagram, we have a guide that goes through the difference between boosting posts and creating ads that you can have a look at if you would like. Freya's just shared the link to that. But to kind of round up the webinar, the most important thing in generating engagement and increasing your results is really thinking through your content, making sure that what you're posting is genuinely relevant and interesting to the people that follow you. So therefore, think about the quality of the posts that you share. Are you creating genuine opportunities to connect? Because those are the things that really matter. Obviously, we've gone through lots of tips today, but we will have an opportunity now to go through some questions. So I'll just pass over to Hans.
Thank you, Phoebe, and thank you to Freya as well. So we've got a question from Katie. Hi, Katie. In Instagram Insights, I can only view the last 14 days of stories. Is there a way of viewing the insights for older stories using an additional app website like Hootsuite or SmarterQ? I've not heard of SmarterQ.
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
I am not 100% sure personally. I wonder if, do we have any recommendations?
So there is a thing called Creator Studio. So if you have a business account, which is free to have on Instagram, you can log into the thing called Creator Studio on your desktop, and that will be able to show you kind of analytics for stories beyond that kind of 2-week window that they give you on the app.
Great.
So you get some analytics from that.
I have a question. Have you Instagram, obviously designed for mobile phone? How does it work with scheduling? What sort of tools are there for scheduling?
So Instagram, there's lots of kind of ways that you can schedule content in advance using platforms such as Hootsuite, Sprout Social. Again, if you guys have any that you'd recommend, please comment them. Just a note on scheduling content in advance. It can obviously help you to make sure that each post is really high quality and that you've really thought through your strategy and that you are really happy with what you're putting out there. Also, it enables you to, I think it's important to be not just prepared with your posts on Instagram, it's also good to post reactively. So you don't want your content to feel stale, that's the only thing. So I think it's about finding a balance in being prepared with scheduling content in advance, but also posting topical content as and when big kind of topics in your industry come up.
Yeah. I used an app, I think it was called Preview. It was a Google, and I think it was quite nice. It wasn't as expensive as Hootsuite and the other ones because it was only focused on Instagram. And I've got a feeling, I'll check it and I'll add it to the notes afterwards, but I've got a feeling I could get back story stats past 14 days, but I'll double check that and add that up. So I've got, what does Katie say? The visuals of the schedule on SmarterQ are great if you are a visual person. They do discount if you are not for profit. Okay, thanks for that tip, Katie. So I have got 2 more slides with some important information, but before I do that, I would love everyone in the room to just share what their biggest takeaway is. It's great feedback for Phoebe and Freya and myself, but also I think it's useful for other people to see what people have valued out of today's content. So if you've got a big takeaway, something you're able to implement after this session, or just something that you didn't know before, please put that in the chat room while I go through the last 2 slides. So that just remains for me to tell you about the next webinar. It's about creating social media content with limited resources. There are a lot of you, you can click on the link to sign up to that. The places are limited, so I do recommend you sign up sooner rather than later. What I just want to say is, well, particularly with a lot of the people in the room, limited resources is often something that we're all restricted by. So I think there's going to be a lot of useful tips in this next session. So do join us using the link, or come back to the website, or just tell colleagues if you think it's relevant for them to sign up to the next one. And as I said, we're planning webinars for up until Christmas and beyond. So we're looking for really useful topics that you're going to find useful. So any ideas, any suggestions for things you'd like for us to cover, please add those in the chat room as well, and we'll factor that into our planning. And also my last slide, or our last slide for the day, Phoebe mentioned the newsletter. So we've got 2 newsletters, but you can sign up in one place. It's a great place to keep in touch with what we're doing with all our community of clients, and the sort of particularly the standout projects that are happening that you might find inspirational for your own organisation. So sign up to the newsletter. That's the quarterly one, and then the new monthly one where we focus on a topic. It's delivered straight to your inbox, so you can be reading it on the train, at lunchtime, really in-depth sort of topics that we hope you'll find really useful. So follow the newsletter, but also follow us on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram, and LinkedIn as well. So after that, I'd just like to say thank you for spending your last hour with us. We hope you've all got something useful out of that, and that you can implement for your own Instagram feeds. So thank you.